They called her just a driver, the quiet one behind the wheel, the person who showed up early and left late without anyone remembering her name. On the day everything went wrong, she was the only reason an entire battalion made it home. Asterisk. What city are you watching from today? If this story resonated with you, hit subscribe for more stories about extraordinary people. Her name was Lena Mercer, and on paper she had the least impressive role on the forward operating base tucked into a narrow desert valley. While others carried rifles or radios, she carried keys. While others studied maps for combat, she studied routes for supply runs. She drove trucks, armored vans, and sometimes just an old transport vehicle that smelled of dust and fuel. To most of the unit, she was invisible. Lena had learned early that invisibility could be useful. When people underestimated her, they stopped watching closely. They did not ask why she memorized every bend in the road or why she kept a small notebook filled with distances, landmarks, and alternate exits. They did not ask why she sat in the mess hall facing the doors or why she listened more than she spoke. They assumed she was just doing her job. The base sat in a valley that looked calm from a distance, but felt tense up close. High ground ringed the perimeter. Roads twisted through narrow passes before opening into long, exposed stretches of sand. Lena drove those roads every day, sometimes twice, sometimes 3 times, delivering supplies, transporting personnel, and returning with empty crates. She learned which sections flooded after rare rainstorms and which ones became choke points when traffic slowed. Some of the soldiers joked that she knew the roads better than the officers. Lena smiled and kept quiet. She had learned that confidence without permission made people uncomfortable. The day of the evacuation began like any other. Lena was assigned to drive a routine transport, moving personnel between 2 sections of the base. The morning sun was already harsh, and the air felt heavier than usual. As she checked the vehicle, she noticed something small but wrong. A radio channel that usually buzzed with idle chatter was silent. When she asked about it, a sergeant shrugged and said comms were being rerouted. Lena nodded, but a tight feeling settled in her chest. Silence on a busy base was never normal. As she pulled onto the main road inside the perimeter, she saw units moving faster than usual. Gear was strapped on with urgency. Orders were short and clipped. Lena caught fragments of conversation about activity in the hills and reports that did not line up. She adjusted her route slightly, choosing a wider turn that gave her more visibility. Halfway through the run, the order came over the radio. All non-essential movement was to stop. Then seconds later, another voice cut in with a different command. Units were to prepare for immediate relocation. The messages overlapped, confused, and then stopped entirely. Lena slowed the vehicle and pulled to the side. She had driven long enough to recognize chaos before it became panic. She looked at the road ahead, then at the mirrors, then back toward the base. Dust clouds were rising where they should not have been. A lieutenant ran up to her vehicle, breathless and frustrated. He told her to wait for instructions. Lena asked one question, her voice calm. Which route was secured? The lieutenant hesitated. That hesitation told her everything. Minutes later, the first reports came in. The valley routes were compromised. Movement from the high ground suggested coordinated pressure. The base was no longer a safe position. What had been a routine day had turned into a full evacuation scenario. Command gathered quickly, but plans conflicted. Some routes were too narrow. Others were too exposed. Maps were spread out, fingers tracing lines that looked good on paper, but failed in reality. Lena stood near the edge of the group, unseen, listening. When she spoke, it was not loud. She said there was another way. A major looked at her, surprised. Another officer frowned and asked who she was. She answered simply, driver, logistics. They were about to turn back to their maps when Lena continued. She described a service route used years ago for construction. It cut through a shallow ravine and reconnected to the main road miles away, beyond the valley. It was not marked as a primary exit because it was rough and narrow. But it avoided the high ground. Someone said it would never support heavy movement. Lena replied that she had driven it, not once, many times. She knew where it widened and where vehicles would need to slow. She knew how long it would take if spaced correctly. The major asked her one question. "Are you sure?" Lena met his eyes and nodded. She had never been more sure of anything. The decision was made fast, too fast for doubt. Lena was ordered to take the lead vehicle. The phrase "just the driver" was not spoken again. As the evacuation began, Lena felt the weight of what she was carrying. Behind her were dozens of vehicles, hundreds of people, entire units trusting her judgment. She focused on the road, on the memory of every turn. The ravine route began as a barely visible cut in the earth. Lena guided the first vehicle in slowly, keeping speed steady. She signaled for spacing, remembering where the ground dipped and where rocks could catch tires. Dust rose, but the walls of the ravine shielded them from view. Radio communication returned in fragments. Reports confirmed that the main routes were now under observation. The decision to divert had come just in time. Halfway through the ravine, a vehicle behind her struggled on a steep incline. Lena stopped, reversed carefully, and guided the driver through the line with hand signals and calm instructions. There was no panic in her voice. Only clarity. As the convoy moved, something shifted among the soldiers. They watched her hands, her mirrors, the way she anticipated problems before they happened. The driver they had ignored was now the person everyone followed. When the ravine opened into the wider road, Lena did not stop. She kept moving, knowing that hesitation could cost them everything. She led them through the final stretch, past a bend where the ground flattened and the horizon widened. One by one, vehicles emerged from the valley. The danger faded behind them, replaced by the vast open distance of safer ground. Only when the last vehicle cleared the route did Lena finally pull over. Her hands trembled as she shut off the engine. Not from fear, but from the release of holding everything together. Command confirmed it moments later. Every unit was accounted for. No losses, no one left behind. The major approached Lena again, this time without surprise. He thanked her. He asked why she had never spoken up before. Lena answered honestly. No one had asked. Word spread quickly after that day. Not about her, rank, or her record, but about the driver who knew the roads better than the maps. The one who paid attention when others overlooked details. The one who understood that leadership sometimes came from the seat no one noticed. Lena returned to her role after the evacuation. She still drove. She still arrived early and left late. But something had changed. People listened now. They asked her opinion. They understood that titles did not always reflect impact. Years later, when the story was told, it was often simplified. They said the evacuation succeeded because of quick decisions or good timing. Lena never corrected them. She knew the truth lived in preparation, humility, and the courage to speak when it mattered. Sometimes the person who saves everyone is not the one at the front of the briefing room. Sometimes it is the one behind the wheel, watching the road, ready long before the moment arrives. What did this story make you feel? Where are you watching from? Subscribe to Soul Relief Stories for more real stories that heal the heart.